Today is the IVR webinar. We're going to go through basically a simple customer satisfaction survey, 2-question. We're also going to look at a couple of other tags, transfer tag and a record tag, basically leave a message or transfer to somebody. And then we're going to discuss some of the other kinds of IVRs you can do. If you're here for either the Cloud Call Center or for voice broadcast, those webinars are on Tuesday and Thursday. So I'm going to assume you're here for the IVR. IVR, by the way, stands for Interactive Voice Response, but clearly it's not actually voice response we're doing, it's touch tone response we're going to be doing. CallFire itself does not offer voice recognition at the moment. To get to the IVR, you go in like, assuming you have an account, you go in like any other CallFire campaign, go up to campaigns, create new campaign. And the first item is the hosted IVR. And this is actually a drag and drop application, a user interface. And because it's an application, you can actually save your work, which you can't do with a lot of other campaign creations in CallFire. The interface is pretty simple. We have action items or tags, what look like buttons across the top. We've arbitrarily divided them into a group of 7 basic ones and 8 advanced ones. There's nothing particularly advanced over the basic ones. We have a workspace. You drag these items down into the workspace, and that's how you build your IVR. And then we have some buttons where you can use to actually work the program. You can save your work. You can launch work you've already saved. I have a bunch of things in here. We have some sample IVRs. We're going to cover that toward the end of the webinar. You can empty out what you're doing and start over from scratch, and along the way you can test your IVR. An IVR is a phone call, so whether you're building an inbound or an outbound IVR, once the call is connected, it's going to run the script. It doesn't really care whether it's inbound or outbound. So you can use the test IVR function to call your phone and test whether it's inbound or outbound. It'll still run the script, and you can test whether your script is working. Now, as I said, we're going to build basically a simple customer service satisfaction survey as our example in this webinar. And an IVR is a phone call, so all phone calls begin with a greeting for the customer, telling them who we are. And so we're going to start with a greeting, and to do that, we're going to just pull a play tag down into the workspace, let go of it, and you'll notice a couple things happen. The basic screen grayed out, and we have a set up new action box. All tags, all action items within CallFire IVR have an action box associated with them. And this is where you can give it a name, you can give it various attributes, and sometimes you can give it a value. We're going to call this play TL for top level. It's our greeting. We could also call it play greeting, whatever. And we're going to use text-to-speech. CallFire play tags can do 3 things basically. We can go to your website and play a sound file. We would have a fully resolved domain name like http://www.mysite.com, and I can go out to mysite.com and I can pick up a sound file like myfile.wave, and I can play that sound file. Okay, and this is off of my site, so it's playing it over the internet. Keep in mind a couple of things. Notice it's .wave. This could also be .mp3. Those are the only 2 file types that we can play, are MP3s or WAV files. And we really want pretty simple ones, 16-bit, 8 kilohertz, monaural. You don't have to write that down right now. It is in our documentation, and you can call us and ask us how to format your sound files. In addition to sound files being played off of my site, I can play sound files off of the CallFire site. One of the things CallFire has in its toolbox is something called a sound manager. And in the sound manager, you can actually call in and you can record sound files. When you do, they're in this list called recorded sound, and then we get a drop-down list, and all of these are recordings that I've recorded into CallFire. So we could grab this emergency 1 sound file and play it. The third thing we can do is play a text-to-speech. And with the text-to-speech, we have to tell us what kind of voice we want. We give you 1 male and 2 female. They're all pretty articulate, sound pretty natural. So choose either any one of them. The default, if you don't choose the voice, is going to be the female too. So we'll just select that. And what we type in here is our greeting. So this is just a greeting, as I said. So it would say something like, hi, welcome to our survey. And that's it. That's all we would say at this particular level. Okay? And actually, let's change this play tag and call it play greeting. That's all we're going to do. Now, the next thing we do, once we say, hi, welcome to our survey, is ask them whether they want to take the survey. So this would be our first question and response setup. So we're going to ask the question, will you take our survey? And we're going to tell them press 1 for yes or 2 for no. So we're going to give them a couple of options on how to respond to us. Those responses, we have to capture those somehow. We capture those with things called a key press. So we're going to do a play tag to ask the question. We're going to do some key presses to get back the response. Somehow the system needs to know that these relate to each other, that the key presses we're going to bring in are in answer to that question. So we need a container that holds our question and our responses together. That container is what we call the press menu. That's the whole function of the press menu, is to contain a question or in a set of instructions and the responses that go with it. So to ask our first question, we're going to bring down a press menu, drop it in place, and notice a couple things, even though it's grayed out, that the menu brought with it a play tag and a key press. As I said, its function is to hold those together, so it automatically assumes that you need at least 1 play tag and at least 1 key press, and it brings them down automatically for you. So we're going to call this is our menu top level for our first question. Max digits is going to be 1. The max digits refers to, very simply, how many digits we want back in response. Not what digits we want back, but how many. So to give an example, the question we're going to ask here is, will you take our survey, press 1 for yes or 2 for no. Each of those responses is a single-digit response, a 1 or a 2. Let's say we were asking the question, please enter your 4-digit account number. Then we would be getting 4 digits back in response, and we could set max digits for 4. In reality, if you are going to do something like a 4-digit account number or a 9-digit social security number or something like that, anything more than 1, you probably want to say something like, please enter your 4-digit account number followed by the pound sign. The pound sign is already defined within the CallFire system to end the customer input. And that way, 2 things happen. The system itself knows that the customer is done entering it because they entered pound, and it can move on. And psychologically, it's better for the customer because they know, they feel finished, that they've entered their account number, then they've entered the pound sign, they've completed their task. So in that case, we would set max digits for 5. Please enter your 4-digit account number followed by the pound sign. That would be 5 digits of input, and the system would know that the 4 digits before the pound sign were what was important. So in this case, we're going to do press 1 for yes or 2 for no, single-digit responses. We also have a timeout. That's in milliseconds. So 3,500 to 3.5 seconds. What this means basically is if nothing happens, if the customer doesn't do anything within 3.5 seconds, move on to the next node or do something else that we tell it to, but generally move on to the next thing. So 3,500 is fine. 3.5 seconds is enough time for them to enter 1 or 2. So we're going to say OK, and then we're going to do our play tag. Now the play tag is asking our first question, our top level question, will you take our survey? It's also telling them how to give us back the response. Press 1 for yes or 2 for no. Any play tag associated with the menu has to do both of those functions. It has to tell us the content we want, will you take our survey, yes or no? Or please enter your 5-digit account number. Somehow define the content, and it has to define the process for giving it to us. Press 1 for yes or 2 for no. In the case of please enter your 5-digit account number, the content and the process are contained within the same statement. In this case, we're going to use the text-to-speech, and we're going to ask a question and define the response. We use our female too, so we're going to say, will you take our survey? Question mark. Use proper punctuation in your text-to-speech. The voices are, as I said, they're very articulate, and they will inflect according to the punctuation. So they'll inflect up for a question mark. They'll be emphatic for an exclamation point. There's a suitable pause under a period or a comma. So will you take our survey, and then give them the proper way to give us back a response. Press 1 for yes or 2 for no. Now, notice I used a single digit for 1. I spelled out 2. You can do either one. It can read digits. However, there is a quirk. The text-to-speech voice reads consecutive digits as a single whole number. So if we do enter a 5-digit account number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I play it back and say you entered and try and read it back to them, it's going to read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with no spaces as a single whole number, and it'll say you entered 12,345. So if you wanted to read a complex number as individual digits rather than a single whole number, you need spaces between the digits. Okay, so will you take our survey? Press 1 for yes or 2 for no. This is really all we need for this question, but I mentioned that we're going to use 2 other tags and look at them later. We're not going to do them yet, but we'll put them in here. And that's a record tag, please leave a message, or a transfer tag. So we're going to say, or press 3 to leave a message, or 4 to talk with an agent. Okay, and we'll come back and do those both also. So now we have our play tags telling them what to do. We need to define the key presses for those possible responses. So this is a key press for the first response. So since this is our top level question, TL, we'll call it TLR1 for top level response 1. And the value here, the press value is 1. In this case, this means what digit are they pressing. So this 1 means that they're pressing the 1 digit. And what's going to happen under this key press is what happens if they press 1. So we're going to say, okay. So let's save our work before we get much further. Save early, save often. CallFire will retain your work, but only if you save it. Call it IVR demo 6.1. Okay. Now, what's happened here? We've asked the question, will you take our survey? Press 1 for yes or 2 for no. And we've got a key press for 1, meaning they press 1 for yes. So under this key press, we could build our whole survey. Okay, as long as it's indented under the key press, it happens because of the key press. But then we would build the whole survey and we wouldn't get to our other key presses that are part of this menu until later. And that's a little bit sloppy. I prefer to do the survey as a subroutine. I'll show you how to do that. And instead, we could just do a go-to tag under here. So we can drop the go-to tag under the key press. Notice I pointed at the icon for that key press, and that made it a dependent of the key press. It's indented from it. So this is our go-to survey, let's call it. And we don't have a node yet for the survey, so we'll just say, okay, we'll need to come back and fill that out. But if they press 1, we're going to go to the survey. They said, yes, they'll take the survey, so we'll go to the survey. So now we can bring down a key press for no, the key press 2 for no, they won't take the survey. Now, before I do, let's look at a couple things. This play tag and this key press are indented from this menu because this menu contains them. They're dependents of that menu. So the next key press we're bringing down has to also be a dependent of the menu. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring it down so it hangs down from this menu, not from the key press, not from the go-to. So we're going to take our little icon and we're going to point our cursor at the icon we want it to be a dependent of, the menu, and we let go. And notice it lines up right in line underneath that menu. So this is going to be key press top level response 2. And the press value is 2. And this means no, they won't take our survey. So if they won't take our survey, we could do something modular here also, do a go to and say go to no. But this is so short and simple, we can just build it out and it's just as easy. So if they say no, we're going to respond to them with a play tag. Play top level response 2. Text to speech, female 2. And basically we're going to say, we're sorry, please try later, goodbye. And basically that's it. And then that's all. We're going to say goodbye, and then we're going to hang up. So we drop a hang up on that, and that's the end of that particular node. If they press 2 for no, we're sorry, please try later, goodbye, and we're done with that particular call. So we have 2 others, if you recall. We're not going to do them yet, but we did a press 3 to leave a message or 4 to talk to an agent. So let's just put those key presses in place, and we'll come back later after we do our survey, and we'll fill those out. So we're going to drop this on the menu. This is going to be key press top level response 3, which will be for leaving a message. The press value will be 3. And then one more key press. Top level response 4. This will be for the transfer tag. And there we are. Now we're pretty much done with this menu level. There's a couple of other things we could do. We've defined key press 1, yes, we'll take the survey. Key press 2, no, we won't do the survey. Key press 3, which is going to be to leave a message. Key press 4, which is a transfer. We have some undefined. We haven't defined 5, 6, 7, 8 through 9, the 0, the star. We could do an invalid handler to do that. I'm going to show you that when we're actually in the survey, so I'm not going to bother with that now. But if you really wanted to round this out, you'd probably have an invalid handler also, and we'll look at that later. But right now, we're going to build our survey. Let's save our work first. Say yes. And now, let's build our survey. Now, because this is a subroutine, we have to begin with the press menu to contain the question, and we want this independent all by itself over here. Okay, so it's line up by itself. And this is the first question of our survey, so we'll call it menu Q1 for question 1. The max digits will be 1, and the timeout will be 3,500. We're going to do a couple of different types of questions in our survey. So this is a simple customer satisfaction survey. Play question 1. Text to speech, female 1. And again, we want to ask our question and then define how to give us a response. So the question, we're pretty simple here. Do you like us? Press 1 for yes or 2 for no. Very simple question and simple response. And then we have key press question 1, response 1. And value is 1 for it. Yes, they like us. Let's save our work. And yes. Okay, now at this point, we need to take care of a couple of things. One is we now have a menu Q1 and a play Q1, which begins our survey. So we have a place to go to with our go-to tag for the survey. So we can go back up here, open it up. And we can fill out this node name, and we can go to menu Q1, say OK. And so if they press 1 up here for yes, we'll take the survey, the go-to tag will immediately jump them down to here and run menu Q1, which is play Q1, do you like us? Okay. Second thing we need to take care of is we've gotten back a 1, meaning yes, they like us, in our response. But we haven't done anything with it. We need to somehow save this response, this 1, so that we can tally it up later and find out how many people like us. There's a couple ways we can do that. We can go up to the advanced tags here, and we have two particular tags to deal with the data that we get back. We have a set var, which stands for set variable. It means literally set the data into a variable, whatever data it is. And we have a stash tag. And the stash tag does one particular thing. It takes any variable or any data or anything we define and puts it into the report. The report is a call details report. Those of you who already have CallFire accounts and have run campaigns know what the call details report is. This will stash this in that call details report, much like your multiple choice questions in the Cloud Call Center. So that's what the stash will do. I'm going to show you how to do both of those. What we'll do is an individual set var for each of our responses, and then we'll gather the data of the set var into a single stash into the report. So let's bring down a set var as a dependent of this key press and save that response into a variable. So we'll call it set var question1 response 1. The variable name is just question1 response. And that's because the variable name for the response 1, yes, they like us, and the variable name for the response 2, no, they don't like us, is the same variable. Okay? The variable doesn't change. The value will change depending on whether they press 1 or 2. Okay? Think of the variable name as belonging to the question and the value as belonging to the responses. So Q and R is going to be our variable for both set vars. You'll see that in a minute. Our value here, there's a number of ways we can do this. We're going to just type in hard-coded 1-yes for 1, yes, they like us, if they press that. So now we have a set var, a variable, which takes our value of 1 and puts it into the variable name Q1R, and that variable name for this particular path is 1-yes. Let's save our work. Again, save often. It's easy to accidentally leave this page and you'll lose all your work. So now we need a key press for 2, no, they don't like us. So we bring down a key press, make this a dependent of our menu Q1, and this is going to be key press question1 response 2 for no. So 2 is our press value. And then we're going to bring down a set var for it. And again, remember our rules. Set var question1 response 2. The variable name is Q1R, question1 response, same variable name. But the value of the variable this time is going to be 2-no. Okay? So question Q1 has a single variable, question1 response, Q1R, and the value of that variable is different depending on whether they pressed 1 or they pressed 2. Let's save this. Okay, now we have 2 possible responses, 1 for yes or 2 for no. So everything else is a wrong response if they press 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. Okay? So let's do an invalid handler to pick up those wrong responses and make them respond correctly to us. So we want to bring down another key press. And we're going to call this key press question1 invalid. Clearly I was not hired for my typing here. Now the press value can be one of a number of things. It can be 3 through 0 or star. So we're going to use the word default, all lowercase here. Now default is predefined within CallFire to pick up any response that we haven't defined already within this menu. So this menu already has 3 defined responses. You may think it has 2, it actually has 3. We have the key press 1 is defined, key press 2 is defined, and remember I said the pound is predefined already within the system. So those 3 are already defined. The default is going to pick up 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, and star. Okay? So we're going to say OK. So if they press any of those, whatever we have under this key press is going to run. So let's bring down a play tag to tell them they've made a mistake. We'll call this Q1 invalid. use our text-to-speech, female 2, and we're just going to say that is an invalid entry. Now, notice I misspelled invalid. If we spell it correctly, I-N-V-A-L-I-D, a single word, it only knows how to read that as a patient lying on a table, and it'll say that is an invalid entry. So we have to fool it into saying invalid properly by spelling invalid as 2 words. So we'll say OK. And this play tag actually isn't quite right. Notice it's not indented under this key press because I dropped it in the wrong spot accidentally. So we have these buttons way over on the right, and they can move things forward in indentation or backwards in indentation. And so we want to move this forward, press on the forward button, and notice it moves that. It would move any dependent key, tags also with it. So this play, if they press an invalid entry, it'll say that is an invalid entry. The next thing we want to do is go right back up to our play Q1. So we can bring down a go to tag, drop that carefully on our key press Q1, go to Q1 invalid, and we can pick our node here. We could go to menu Q1 or play Q1, they're really the same thing, and say OK. And if they enter something invalid, it'll say that is an invalid entry. It'll immediately come back up here and say, do you like us? Press 1 for yes or 2 for no. So that's our first question, all taken care of. Let's save our work. Okay. Now, let's do a second question. And this is going to be a different kind of question, okay? So we're going to bring down another press menu. And call this menu Q2. And I'm making this an independent question just following after the first one. In reality, you'll see once I do that this would really be a dependent question only if they entered 1 for yes, but we're not going to worry about that. That's for right now. Again, we're going to do max digits of 1 because it's a single key press response, and the timeout of 3.5 seconds is fine. So do our play tag, play question 2. Our text-to-speech, female 2. And as I said, this is really a follow-up to yes, saved like us. Okay? So the question, do you like us? Yes, we do. The follow-up is how much? Now this is a different kind of question. We could get really fussy and enter press 1 for an awful lot, press 2 for just an awful lot, press 3 for not quite as much, and that gets really fussy. It's much easier to just say, please enter a range from 1 to 9, with 1 being a lot and 9 being not at all. Okay, so this is a much easier way for them. Just enter anything you want from 1 to 9. We can say OK. And now we have to do our key press. But this key press gives us a different challenge. Question 2 response. Not response 1 or 2 or 3 like we did before because we don't know what it is. Okay, we told them to enter a range. We don't know what they're going to enter. So we could put default here like we did for the invalid, but default is going to pick up more than our 1 to 9. It's also going to pick up 0 or star, and we don't want that. So CallFire allows you to enter a range, and the syntax is a number hyphen another number, with the outside numbers being the outside limits of the range inclusive. So we can do 1 through 9, and that means the range we defined, it includes the 1, it includes the 9. Now this can be pretty sophisticated. Remember our 4-digit account number? Well, suppose all account numbers start with 1. We could do 1000-9999, and that would tell it to accept only 4-digit numbers between 1,000 and 9,999. Okay, and we could define our 4-digit account number that way. So CallFire is pretty sophisticated in how this range stuff works. So again, we're going to do just 1 through 9. We're going to say OK, and that's all they can press there. And then we need to do our set var. Bring that down. And we're going to do set var question 2 response. The variable name here is Q2R, question 2 response. And the value is, we don't know. We don't know what they entered. So we're going to do a variable reference here. The system knows what they entered. So in order to do a variable reference within CallFire, there's a particular syntax. That syntax is $, curly brace, or piano bracket, same thing. The curly brace is the weird curly thing to the right of the P on your keyboard if you're holding down Shift. It's what you see in Grand Staff music, piano music, in sheet music. So we're going to open with that, and then it's a variable name followed by the closed piano bracket. The variable name in this case is call.last input. The real variable name is the last input. The call dot means it's a system variable. So it's $, piano bracket, call.last input, closed piano bracket. And that will get whatever they put in according to the max digits. Remember, max digits is 1, so it's going to look for a single digit that they entered, and it's going to hold that in our set var tag. Okay? Now, there's something we didn't do up here in menu Q1, and I need to do it because I forgot to do it, frankly. And that's, we want to not just create a variable, we want to stash that variable in our report. So we're going to do that for both of our questions here. So let's take our stash tag, and let's hang one of those from menu Q1. So it's hanging down here, and we're going to stash question 1 response. We're going to give it a variable name that's just for the report. So SQ1R, and the value here is again a variable reference like we just did for the call last input. So it's $, piano bracket. In this case, the variable is the one we created, which is Q1R, closed piano bracket. So that'll take the value of Q1R that we created with our various set vars here and stash that in the report and say OK. And then we can do the same thing for question 2. Stash Q2R, variable name SQ2R, and the value is $, piano bracket, Q2R, closed piano bracket. And that will stash the 1 through 9 that we created in our set var in the report. Now, at this point, we could do, I'm not going to bother, but we could do another invalid handler, use our default, loop it back up to play Q2 if they entered the wrong thing. Let's save our work. Okay, so we've looked at so far a simple press 1 for yes or 2 for no, what we call a defined answer question. We've looked at a simple range question. Okay, we've taken the answers from those, put them into a variable. We've also stashed them in the report. So we know how to do basically various kinds of customer service satisfaction surveys. Okay, I promised that we'd look at a couple of other kinds of tags also. We have a key press 3 for please leave a message, and a key press 4 for would you like to be transferred. So let's go back up and redo those now. This key press 3, please leave a message, we want to tell them how to leave a message. So the first thing we do under our key press 3 is put in a play tag giving them instructions. So this is going to be play top level response 3. We could do play transfer, whatever we want. Text to speech, female 2. And here's how to leave a message. Please leave your message after the beep and press pound when finished. You can say tone instead of beep, or you can say hash mark instead of pound if you're European. Okay? So after this play tag is going to be a record tag. So one of the things implied by this message I just wrote out is that when the record tag starts, it's going to start with a beep. You don't have to put in a play tag with some sort of a recorded beep or anything like that. It's already done for you. As soon as the record tag starts, it's going to say beep. Okay? One other thing you might want to know, you can have as many play tags as you need. You'll notice when we do the record tag, or not play tags, as many record tags as you need. When we do the record tag, we're going to give it a variable name. And that's how it will appear in the report, is under that variable name. So you could do something like, please leave your name after the beep, have that record tag's variable name be name. Then do another tag that says, please leave your address after the beep, have that variable name address. And you could do a whole bunch of recordings. Some people do this for legal reasons. You know, do you agree to the previous statement? Please state yes after the beep. You know, things like that. So they get a legal document out of it. So that's our, please leave your message after the beep, press pound when finished. Then all we would do is bring down a record tag. Record top level response 3. Variable name, like I said, it could be name, it could be address. I'm going to do customer message. Now remember that our variable names we did before was Q2R, no spaces. Notice that this is actually 2 words, the abbreviation CUST for customer, and then message with a capital M, and that they're run on, no space. If you make your variables in this format with no spaces and run on words and stuff, then they are variables that can be used in other kinds of programming like Java, .NET, PHP, etc. And it's important that you have your variables set up this way so that you can communicate with your other programming, especially if you're going to do tags that get tags and things like that, that send and receive data from your servers. So we follow that, you know, good programming syntax for variable names within CallFire IVR. We're not going to record the rest of the call because we already told them to press pound when they're finished. We want this to be a fairly short message. So we're going to say OK, and all we're going to do is then do a hang up tag as the last thing in this particular node. So say OK, they can record their message, system will hang up, and we're all done with them. Now the last thing is a transfer tag. So again, we're going to give them instructions under key press 4, top level response 4, text to speech, email 2. And basically, this is just going to tell them that we did get your key press 4, we did get your request to transfer, please wait, you're now being transferred. I like to say something like, please wait, and agent will be with you shortly. Okay? Any way you want to phrase it. But basically, you're just letting them know they're being transferred. And then we would bring down a transfer tag. It's not a dependent of the play, it's a dependent of the key press. Drop it in there. So we'll just call it transfer to agent. And then we could put in our number, 5551212. And if that's all we have, if we don't have any other numbers, we don't have to enable advanced features. We just say OK, and it would do the transfer. But let's say we actually have a couple of numbers. Let's say we hired Jim and Julie here recently, and we've got Jim's number there. We want to put in Julie's number, 213. And so we have 2 of them. If we have more than 1 number, we must enable advanced features and tell the system how to handle those numbers. Basically, that's going to be under transfer style. We'll get to that in a minute. We can pass on caller ID as long as we're doing advanced features. So how do we do that? If this is an inbound campaign, we've already captured the number they dialed from, the inbound number, as the caller ID. That's automatic within our system. So we can do a variable reference. Remember our syntax for variable reference, $, piano bracket, and because it's the system variable, call dot. And then the way we've captured the inbound caller ID is just that, caller ID. And that would pass on the inbound caller ID to our agent. Okay? Suppose, on the other hand, this is an outbound campaign. We called them, but we still want to pass on their phone number. In that case, the caller ID would be us because we initiated the call. The number we dialed is called the phone number. So call.phone number would pass on the phone number of the customer if it's an outbound campaign. There's also call.dnis. If this were an inbound campaign and we had a bunch of inbound campaigns all going to the same agents and we wanted to pass on what number they dialed, the number they dialed is call.dnis, for example. You'll see that. I'll show you where to look all that stuff up. So in this case, we'll pass on call. We'll assume we called them. We'll pass on their phone number. We can set hold music for them. The only thing I don't recommend is silence. Generally, if you say, please wait, you're being transferred, then suddenly they hear silence. Psychologically, they think I've been hung up on and they're going to hang up. Okay, so give them something to listen to. We'll select blues for right now. Now, we've got two phone numbers here. We have to tell the system how to deal with it. One of the ways is if we hired both Jim and Julie to answer the phone for customer service and we're passing on to them, we could tell them, okay, guys, I hired both of you in competition with each other. Whoever gets the most phone calls wins. So, you know, I'm going to pay the most to the most number of phone calls. And I can basically do what's called a hunt group, do ring all. It'll ring both of their numbers simultaneously, and then it's dog eat dog. Whoever grabs it gets the most pay. Okay? On the other hand, suppose I actually hired Jim to be our customer service flunky, and Julie really is, you know, our web designer, and she's only backing up Jim when Jim gets overwhelmed. Okay? Well, I can have it ring Jim's number first by doing waterfall and telling it how long to ring it. Basically, every 5 seconds is roughly, that corresponds to a ring. So 25 seconds is about 5 rings. So I could put in 25 seconds, select waterfall. It'll ring Jim's number for 5 rings, and only if he doesn't pick it up will it then move on to Julie's number. Okay? So she would only be a backup. Generally, you're not going to do anything with continue after transfer. That's a very rare event. That's if, for some reason, you're going back into the IVR after they've had the transfer talked to. Whisper text-to-speech is very interesting, however. Remember I said, suppose we have a whole bunch of phone numbers and they're all going to the same agents doing different kinds of campaigns. One of the ways to tell them that is to do call DNIS and shows what numbers coming in. But rather than having them memorize something like that, you can actually tell them, and this is only played for our agent, not for the person calling in. Before the call is connected to the customer, the whisper text-to-speech will whisper whatever I type in here. So suppose I have a real estate business and a mortgage business. I could tell my agents which call this is by saying mortgage business. And it would say that to them. Okay, then I would say okay, and that takes care of the transfer. If I didn't do continue after transfer, then it's going to automatically hang up when the agent hangs up. And this ends all of that. Let me, at this point, save my work. Let me unmute and see if there are any questions at this point. Because this basically completes our customer satisfaction survey and our extra tag. Any questions on what we're doing so far?
No, thanks. Everything is okay.
I'm sorry?
I said everything is good.
Okay, good. Okay,
yeah.
So let's cover a couple of other things. I mentioned there are sample IVRs in here. Some of them get into some more complex stuff. If you click on there, you can see that we have a basic 2-answer question. That's like the first menu Q1 we did. Basic range question. That's like our menu Q2. Appointment confirmation is interesting. This is an outbound campaign, and this uses a function sometimes called mail merge. It uses a sophisticated application of the variable reference. So if we go to the play tag here, you'll notice it says, hi, this call is for variable reference call field B, call field C, etc. This assumes that you have some information within your spreadsheet. Remember, this is outbound only, so you've uploaded the spreadsheet here. and you have information for it to read. So suppose that the person's first name was in field B, column B of the spreadsheet. Column C was the last name. Column D was the day of the week. And column E was the time. This would actually read, if it were John Smith, hi John, or this call is for John Smith. John, you have an appointment on Friday with ABC Health Clinic at 3:00 p.m. Okay? And it can actually read the data from your spreadsheet. Okay, it can also read data from an array from a get tag and things like that. This can get very sophisticated. Some of the other sample IVRs we have are, we have a voicemail module, so you can do a whole, not just that simple record tag, but a whole, please leave your recording, press 1 if you like it, if not, press 2 to re-record it, things like that. We have an if tag. In this case, this particular if tag is if the caller ID is blocked. So if caller ID, making it lowercase automatically, equals blocked, if it equals anonymous, if it equals unknown, etc., then it will play this play tag. Please call back with your caller ID unblocked. If it's not, then it'll let the call through. We have transfer tags. We showed you how to do that. We have call forwarding, basic call forwarding. We have timeout loops. We have various things in here. If you need help, you can call us up and we'll give you help with those. Okay, I also want to show you where to find help. So basically, if you're logged in and you want to get some help with your IVR, go up to the help button here. And that'll take you to the outside menus. By the way, we have, if you click help, we have thorough documentation on all of our campaigns, not the IVR in here yet. The IVR is over here under developers, XML documentation. And here's where the hosted IVR stuff is. We have our IVR demo. We have some other more thorough sample campaigns. We show you all of the tags. On any tag, we give you full instructions. We define the tag. We show you possible values. So in this case, this is a set bar. The values can be a variable call like we did, when we did the Q&R. We hard-coded 1 - yes or Elvis Presley. Or you can actually have a function and an operation on that function. Suppose answer 8 here in this variable reference is a number like 24, and we add 10 to it. That would make this set bar have the value of 34. Okay. We show you what attributes you can have within the tag. A set bar, for example, can have a name, and it must have, and that's not required. Required, yes. It must have a variable name. We're setting a variable, so we obviously have to give that variable a name. Okay. We have some examples. We have usage scenarios. We'll show you special usages. So in this case, this shows how to take a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and read it back so that instead of saying 12,345, it actually puts a space there. Basically, we create a new variable called exploded input in this case. We take our number, last input, we split it. Don't worry about this. This is basically a little bit of sophisticated Java programming. But we basically split it, and we join it with a space between the numbers, and then we read that back, read exploded input with a play tag, and it reads 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? But the idea here is it will give you usage scenarios for some of our tags. If we go back, I want to show you where the reserved variables are. So under additional information, we can look at the reserved variables. And again, all variables in CallFire follow the following format: $, piano bracket, variable name, close piano bracket. All system variables have the call dot within them. And these are lists of system variables: call.caller ID, caller ID alpha, DNIS, call.field.a. Remember, we do that for the merge function. And we can go from column A to column ZZ. So that's a lot of pieces of information we can use. We can do the actual call ID. That's the CallFire ID. I don't know of much use for that, except for in certain API campaigns. The call.last input, we use that one in our demonstration. the path, the phone number, etc. We also can use global date and time. So you can do this if you want something to happen during business hours and something else to happen after business hours. You can use an if tag that references the global time.hour.military and say, you know, if before 7 or after 18, which is 1800 is 6 o'clock p.m., then, you know, go to a record. Okay, otherwise, you know, transfer to my agent, things like that. And by the way, this exists within the, we have an example of this in the sample IVRs. And the last thing I want to show you is we do have some fairly sophisticated sample campaigns under here. Inbound, outbound, surveys, political, appointment scheduling, things like that. You can take these and actually load them in and work with them. Like we open this candidate poll here. And this is pretty sophisticated. Consensus polling group, would you take our census? Okay, would you vote for our candidate? That kind of thing. If you're going to use these, don't cut and paste directly from this example because this has formatting you don't want. You'll notice you have these 3 icons up on top. One of them is view the source code. If we click on that, this is unformatted text here. This is what you want to cut and paste into your XML editor. So that's it. Let me leave you with the last couple of things. If you would like to get a hold of me or anyone else to help you with your IVR, the best way is to email us with your questions. Send your questions to support@callfire.com. You can put attention bill in the subject line, or you can put XML questions in the subject line, things like that. We'll get back to you with those. If you want to call in to 213-221-2289. Again, you can ask for me. I am the senior IVR designer, but any of our support staff is extremely knowledgeable about this and can give you help on this. Last thing is make sure you do send an email to support@callfire.com. Explain that you were on the webinar today, and we will give you your $5 free credit. Any questions?
No, thanks. No,
None.
Okay, well, thanks for joining the webinar.
Okay.
Good luck with your IVRs. I look forward to working with you on them, and thank you very much.